Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
In the late night hours when the world's asleep, Rob McConnell's voice echoes secrets to keep. From Roswell's whispers to tales of the sky, on the X Zone radio, we learn to fly high. With every new guest, the story unfolds, from abductees' tales to the mysteries told. Government cover-ups, they're deep and they're wide, but we're on a quest with the truth as our guide. Oh, journey through the X Zone, the cosmos we roam.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. I am Robert Connell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. Tonight on the X Zone, we have a very special guest. He's been called the leading voice in the political truth movement for UFO disclosure. As the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, he has spent decades lobbying Congress, briefing political leaders, and shaking the very foundations of secrecy surrounding ET contact. Now, from the corridors of Washington, D.C. to the halls of the international media, our guest this hour, Stephen Bassett, has made his mission to end the government-imposed truth embargo on the ET presence with growing public interest. Congressional hearings and whistleblower revelations. Are we on the brink of a full disclosure? Joining us is Stephen Bassett, the only registered UFO lobbyist in the United States, and the man behind www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. Ready for a conversation that might change the way you see our world and the universe around us? Stephen, welcome back to the X Zone.
Good to be back, Rob. Let me clarify something. I'm proud to say that there are, maybe 5, 6, 7 lobbyists, other people that have registered on this issue with our government, going back, maybe started about 5 years ago. So I'm not the only one, but I'm glad about that. It just reflects where the issue is going.
All right, so I should say that you are the first one.
I was the first person crazy enough to register as a lobbyist on the ET issue, knowing that the newspaper would find it amusing, which they did in Washington Post interview. Good interview, by the way. Once that interview hit the front page, it was gangbusters after that.
Stephen, what originally inspired you to find the Paradigm Research Group?
It was, as I've counted many times, I just got a point in life when I wanted to do something that meant something. I'd spent the first half of my life doing what most people do, which is pay bills, try to enjoy yourself and all that, but that wasn't good enough for me. Something was not right. And at the age of 49, I said, look, I'm going to do something that's meaningful and try to help in a way. Serve, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
To serve is not quite the same thing as just trying to get a paycheck. And so I thought about the issues, and this is the one that came to my attention the most. I've been aware of it. And what tripped it, though, is I'd read a few books, but I read John Mack's book, Alien, Abduction, rather, Alien, Human Encounter with Aliens. This is in 95, and it really impressed me. And I'm going, wow, this thing is really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got in touch with them, and they let me come volunteer for them. And I had a nice little door to go through. Met my first contactees, met John Mack, got all excited, got pumped up. I was up in Boston. And it was there that I figured out, what can I do? I have a physics degree that's not going to help me in this field, really. And what do I do? And then I realized that I was a political guy. I was involved in some of the protests back in the 60s and been in Washington most of my life. Kind of knew the ropes. And I realized that this is not a science problem. It's been treated as a science problem. Prove it, prove it, prove it. And then the government will go, you proved it. No, it's a political problem. It's a national security decision to maintain a truth embargo on this, as I came to call it. It has to have a political solution. You can prove all you want. It's going to matter. So therefore, you have to engage it politically. Who's doing that? Virtually nobody that I was aware of. Turned out there were a couple of people I wasn't aware of, but still. And I said, okay, how do I do that? How do I get involved? Don't have any money, but I do have a family place to stay and things like that. And I realized, wait a minute, nobody's ever registered as a lobbyist on this. Probably because they're either not, they're sane, right? They have families, jobs, whatever. I didn't have those problems, and so I said I can register as a lobbyist. I'm perfect, and I did, and it was a great decision, and it worked out. I haven't done a lot of lobbying, I assure you. I ended up basically as a political activist, which is really what I was, and my role increasingly became trying to explain the bigger picture to just regular people who are trying to keep up with all this and are a little concerned, and then also pressing the government in various ways. But to be I'm not a pure lobbyist. I'm a political activist that's registered as a lobbyist. You want to lobby, really professionally lobby on something, you better belong to a firm, and you better have a lot of money available to you. And that, of course, is not the case with this. But nevertheless, there are a number of lobbyists now. The issue is fully engaged and very politicized. And so I'm optimistic, but it's still a very tough ride.
Can you explain the mission and goals of the Paradigm Research Group?
Well, it was set up specifically to end the truth embargo, which I didn't call it that. I didn't call it the truth embargo until, I don't know, 2001 maybe. And the truth embargo is the policy of the government that we can't handle this truth. We can't, we don't have a legal right to it even, and so forth. That's the policy. Started in 1947. And that policy may have had value and been justified in the early couple decades, but at some point it simply outlived its appropriateness. And that really starts after the Cold War ended, at least the first round of the Cold War ended in 1991. And as things went on after that, it only got worse and worse. And so the truth embargo is the government policy not to confirm that this is in fact real, here, present, and that truth embargo has to end. The end of that embargo must come from the president, must come from a head of state, and that's what I've come to call capital D disclosure. That's the only definition of it. There are no others because I made it. And pursuing disclosure then became the prize of this movement, which is now truly a movement. And PRG, that's what it's been all about. It is about ending the truth embargo. After that, it will try to adjust. I'm already starting by forming or changing to a 501c3 nonprofit. After that comes addressing and dealing with the post-disclosure world. This is where the real fun begins.
You know, you've been at the forefront for the fight of disclosure, well, ever since I've known you. How close are we to the actual government acknowledgement, in your opinion, of non-human intelligence?
Yeah. We're 78 years in since Roswell. The first 70 years were tough, brutal. Some progress, major setback, but a huge amount of research was done, a huge amount of evidence was gathered, and a great platform was made to finish it off. But the opportunity to really close the deal doesn't begin until 2017. A breakthrough. Some people came forward, very powerful articles in the New York Times, and it was very quickly obvious to me that several key people, particularly Christopher Mellon, were now pursuing the political resolution because they had the means, the connections, and the history to do it. And they represented probably quite a few others still working in government that would like to be public and do it, but they simply can't. But they support the idea. In other words, over the years, more and more people, good people inside government, really felt the embargo of this issue was no longer acceptable, and they would like to see it end, but that doesn't mean they couldn't really do anything. But some people have chosen to come out and do that. And the process began. It's now 7 years on, and it's been a steady progress towards ending the truth embargo with some significant moments and highlights. And we've been close, real close, a couple of times, but not quite there. But unfortunately, the history of this time is extremely complex and volatile. And it hurt rather. Unlike in the past, a major event would happen like 9/11 and so forth, it would just totally set the issue back and almost put it in reverse. Everything that's happened in the last 7 years, and it's been a rather lot of stuff, both domestically and foreign, has never reversed the truth embargo's course. It's slowed it down, maybe to crawl at times, but never stopped it. And so we've been heading towards the inevitable, but we've recently had another major, how would you say, slowdown, and we're now dealing with that. It's frustrating, but there's a lot of very complex and dangerous things going on, both in the world and domestically. And you just have to yield to that because the press and the public's interest are going to be focused on those major issues. And until that kind of clears up, the truth embargo remains safe.
Why do you believe successive U.S. administrations have withheld information about UFOs and DT contact, Steve?
We don't have obviously statements from all these presidents about why they did what they did, so we have to surmise. Historians will eventually get that information and write some rather extensive books about it. But my basic explanation for just the average person trying to understand this is that the government learned no later than 47 that there's these non-humans with non-human tech in our airspace, if not elsewhere. No later than 47, because they had a vehicle and they had the bodies. That's absolutely been established by some tremendous research by Carey and Don Schmidt and Stanton Friedman and others. And we have hundreds of witnesses, so it's a done deal. But they might have known a little sooner, because there's evidence emerging about a 1933 crash in Italy that might have ended up ultimately in our hands, but after the war, possibly before Roswell, but incredibly tightly held. So let's just work with 47. So they've known about it since then. And Truman had a simple decision. We got a vehicle. This is a major story. War II is over. We're heading into what could be a pretty stable time, though the Korean War is about to get going. Nevertheless, he had a decision to just tell Roger Ramey, the general down at Fort Worth, look, let's just sit on this for a while, come up with a cover story, and then we'll examine it at the high level here in D.C. and make a decision about what to do. Maybe we'll just go ahead and tell the people, guess what? This is going to be a real interesting second half of the 20th century. But ultimately, what he decided to do was to not tell the people and sit on it longer than a few weeks. So they kind of started to address it, I think, internally, started putting people together to deal with it, making a decision that they would, maybe come forward later. They have to give it a little time. But the Korean War gets started. That doesn't help. And so now it's kind of locked down for national security reasons.
All right, Stephen, I have to take my break, so I have to take a break here, so please stand by. Exonation, our guest this hour is Stephen Bassett. And if you'd like to find out more about Stephen, his website is paradigmresearchgroup.org. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and the X Zone Broadcast Network. We'll be back on the other side of the short break. Don't go away.
Journey through the X Zone, the cosmos we roam, searching for answers beyond our earthly home. Are we alone in the dark, or watching from afar? In the heart of the night, we're reaching for. In the twilight's hush, where shadows whisper low, a silver glimmer streaks across the sky, aglow with a haunting melody. The air begins to thrum, an echo of the wonders that from beyond have come. Celestial encounter as the stars align, a tapestry of wonders woven through space and time. From
Explanation. Steve Bassett is our special guest, and his website is www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. And Stephen, we were talking about what happened after World War II with the coming of the Korean War.
The question was, why has it been withheld administration after administration all these years? And the answer, long story short, is that by mid-52, Truman had still not made a decision, obviously, to let the people know about this. The Korean War was not helping. But then in July of 52, the ETs, for whatever reason, these beings, wherever they're from, did a substantial flyover the capital that went on for quite a few days, very much upsetting the government. There's nothing they could do about it. Fortunately, there weren't a lot of people with cameras walking around. They didn't get a lot of shots, but it was news, and it got picked up, and it forced a response from the government, some kind of response. They had to make it, and General Sanford's response is famous. Donald Keogh also responded at the time, who was now really much into the issue, and said flat out that it was extraterrestrials. But nevertheless, it really shook the government up. They pulled together a panel pretty quickly later that year called the Robertson Panel, the CIA panel. And the conclusion was that under the circumstances, while the phenomena seemed to pose no threat, which is a very important thing to note, that was in the report, the public's growing interest as we move into what is clearly going to be a kind of nuclear arms race with a war going on in Korea that had the potential to trigger a nuclear weapons use, that let's sit on this. We're just not going to put this out. We're going to classify it indefinitely and then see how this whole nuclear thing and this Soviet Union thing plays out. And that decision remains the policy to this day. It's a political decision, national security based, it's legal, and it's still in place. But it's time for it to end. I mean, it's well past time for that policy to be changed.
Steve, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the U.S. government is actually hiding the truth that you know of.
It's not a piece of evidence. It's a mass of evidence accumulated in hundreds, if not thousands, of books by scores of researchers over 70 years. Documents have come out. Some have been gotten through FOIA. Some have actually been released by the FBI and the CIA, which actually talks about this. You can find them online. They're not completely, and couldn't, if they wanted to, just ignore all this. The composite of the evidence, the totality of it, is overwhelming, and that's how things are proven. No single thing does it. And there's been plenty of witnesses that have had experience in dealing with the issue inside that have come forward, even going back 20, 30, 40 years. Pilots, of course, have made reports. The totality of the evidence is overwhelming that this is a non-human phenomena. This is not tech that we built. And so the logical conclusion is they're from another star system. Put your money on that. If we had the ability to go from star to star, we sure as hell would, and we'd be the extraterrestrials.
What about the new administration that has been in power since January? Do you think that President Trump and his cabinet will be part of disclosure?
Absolutely could happen. There's a number of factors underway here. It's extremely complicated. The situation in the United States and internationally is probably more complicated than it was going into World War II. It's pretty straightforward. You had, the good, the bad, and they went at it. Now the world is just four-dimensional chess all the time. But the fact is that since 2017, major unprecedented progress has been made towards getting this over, getting this truth embargo ended. And a great deal that had to happen has happened. Legislation, hearings, direct engagement by a number of politicians, a number of people in Congress, both parties, a very bipartisan or nonpartisan approach. All of this is exactly what was needed. Many witnesses coming forward, major serious hearings, and thousands of articles, 6,000 at least. I've logged into my print media archive at paradigmresearchgroup.org. It's just 2018. So all of that pretty much, and then of course the creation of offices like task force, Arrow, and all of that. All of this is exactly what was needed for the government to be able to disclose and end this embargo. And all of this is not about finding out what it is, they already know, but it is about preparing for the inevitable confirmation that's coming, which is awkward because you can't say that. So they're basically saying, we're going to look into this, we're going to find out what it's all about, but that's a cover for setting up this infrastructure, which is in place.
What was your reaction to the recent congressional UAP hearings?
Oh, I was there, and certainly the two major ones. This is unprecedented. These are major events in history. Only the truth embargo prevents them from being celebrated fully from around the world. David Grush actually broke a major barrier there and took everything to another level. And under oath, he said we have non-human tech and non-human bodies, which is pretty much as clear as it could be. Other members of Congress, like Tim Burchett, have gone on television programs on camera and said we have non-humans or we have a presence, ET presence, whatever. So all of that is powerful, but what's more important is it's all part of a bigger project, which is building the platform for the president to stand on and say what has to be said and not have some ridiculous reaction or people get upset. In fact, they'll be quite understanding because given everything else that's happening, it supports it. So in other words, the platform is built. The president hasn't stepped out on it yet. 13 presidents could have done this. Every one of them knew there was an ET presence, I assure you, or this non-human presence, whatever you want to call it. Every one, because you just don't get to be president, and that kind of thing is kept from you. Now, that doesn't mean that you've been heavily briefed or you know all the details. It just means you know it's real. But they've all chosen, though there have been a few efforts, to not do it. This is the 14th president. This is his second time around. And my feeling about this is pretty strong, that there's enough there for the president to act. The platform has been built, but is he the kind of president that would do it? And of all the 14, he is the president who could do it. He has a unique, I guess you could say, a way of handling matters and dealing with things. He is much less dependent upon other people's advice, and he's surrounded by people that want to support whatever he wants to do. And so I think he could do it, and he could do it tomorrow. And there's plenty of evidence pointing that it's possible. It's not. This is not just conjecture, but more and more when I think about what the current president could do, I'm reminded of a movie that I loved many, many years ago. I think it's 40 years ago. Anyway, it was Lawrence of Arabia with O'Toole and Anthony Quinn. Major motion picture. I think it won Oscar. And so there is this classic scene in the movie. They're out in the desert. Lawrence is out in the desert at the encampment of Abu Ghraib, a very powerful leader of one of the groups there. And he's trying to convince him to help take the city of Aqaba, which is kind of critical to the war effort at that time. And it's going back and forth, and Abu Ghraib is not interested. But he says, Lawrence says to him, he says, you must take Aqaba. And Abu Ghraib comes back, and he says, Abu Ghraib must take Aqaba. And Abu Ghraib comes back and says, why should he take Aqaba? And Lawrence's reply was classic. Because it pleases him to do so. If you ever get to watch this movie, watch that scene. It is a very significant scene. It stuck with me for years. I always liked it. Lo and behold, some 40 years later, I think, I'm in a situation that is so like it, it is almost eerie. And so the conversation goes like this. I'm just, fantasizing here, but let's go with it. I'm in the Oval Office, and I'm trying to persuade the president time to end the truth embargo. Mr. President, you should end the truth embargo. And the president says, and why should the president end the truth embargo? And my answer would be, because it pleases him to do so. And that kind of sums it up. Anybody that has followed the career of the current president knows that statement absolutely applies. If it pleases him to do so, he will do it, and nobody will talk him out of it. He's got plenty of people around him, I believe, that actually think it's a good idea, including his son. But there's a lot going on. Okay, let's face it. I mean, there's all hell is going on all over the place. And so it's not like it's top of his list. And there's obviously more resistance given the national security issues that are in play because of extraordinary and dramatic events happening overseas. And then, of course, we've got political chaos here, or at least certainly upheaval. But that doesn't mean you couldn't do it tomorrow. I'm just saying that the stage is set, and I want people to know that. But it's, at this point, completely up to the president whether he chooses to do that. And the only thing I would add is that if he doesn't do it, there are a couple of heads of state that could come out and confirm it. They will be the disclosure head of state. They will get the historical legacy. They will get the glory as being the great truth teller. And our president will have to follow second or third. And that's pretty straightforward. It's not a complicated setup.
Is it possible, Steve, that a different country's leader, like China or North Korea or even Russia, would come out and head up the disclosure?
Yeah, it's very possible. There are a number of reasons why Xi Jinping could do it. I can elaborate, but a number of very good reasons. They haven't done it so far. There's reasons for that. Putin certainly could do it. He is somewhat preoccupied. I doubt that any of the allies of the U.S. would do it, such as Canada, UK, Australia, even France, Germany, Italy. I don't see that. Korea is an outlier there. I think it's possible, but probably not, because that's the most controlled state in the world. And the great leader does not want his people distracted by learning that there's even more advanced and powerful entities out there than their leader.
All right, Steve,
I kind of put it down to Ping or Putin.
All right, I've got to take my break here. Please stand by. Exonation. Stephen Bassett is our very special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Stephen, visit his website, www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. And we'll be back on the other side of the short break. Don't go away.
With a haunting melody, the air begins to thrum, an echo of the wonders that from beyond have come. Celestial encounter as the stars align, a tapestry of wonders woven through space and time. From the void of darkness, a chorus sings so bright, mysteries unfolding. Some days I walk, some days I crawl, some days I can't feel much at all. My body's a maze that I try to read. Every step forward, a silent need. But I won't let this break who I am. I've learned how to fight, learned how to stand. I may fall, but still I rise. Through the pain, through the tears in my eyes. This road is long, but it's mine to tread. With every sunrise, I lift my head. I won't be defined.
Stephen Bassett is our guest this hour, www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. Stephen, what protections do whistleblowers really have in this field? Like, you've got them coming up, they're putting themselves at risk. Do they get any protection?
This is a very complicated area for a number of reasons. There are witnesses and there are whistleblowers, and they're not the same thing. Well, I guess a whistleblower is a witness, but really a witness is not the same thing. And some people get that confusing. A witness is someone that is simply providing information. either because they're asked or they've stepped forward about something that's important. And this is helpful. The government may get the information and act on it. Journalists may act on it. But overall, they're just a witness. That doesn't mean they're not subject to some issues or problems. A whistleblower is something quite different. A whistleblower, if you're going to use the term correctly, is like the gentleman that came forward to basically blow the whistle on the cigarette companies where he had worked and show that they had been withholding evidence and essentially distorting the evidence in order to present their product as a safe product. He was a whistleblower because he is someone coming forward to give testimony that within his workplace something illegal is happening, and he had an extremely tough time. There have been other whistleblowers that have had a tough time, occasionally even committing suicide. So there's a big difference. The level of protection for the whistleblower is obviously greater, and there have been some whistleblower acts. But they are not foolproof. It's almost impossible to have a, quote, foolproof protection for whistleblowers in this day and age. Almost anybody can threaten to kill anybody in a lot of different ways and remain anonymous. You can't stop that. Mm-hmm. Mostly whistleblower protection is designed to protect them against their own company or possibly a formal legal action from government. But you can't protect them against what citizens do, as we just recently learned just a couple of days ago. Witnesses have less risk, but occasionally what they are presenting is definitely pretty significant. And while they have no culpability or guilt, people just decide they don't like them. So there has been some effort to add additional protection for whistleblowers and witnesses in this particular genre. Some of it was in some of the legislation. They're trying to write more. And again, that kind of legislation is extremely complex. They have some protection, certainly. They probably will get more, but nothing is complete. In the age of the internet and so forth, if you do these things, you can expect to be threatened. You can expect to be doxxed. You can expect your information to get out. And so you just have to be prepared for a rough time. The legislation will help, obviously, but it's not foolproof. And that's why I don't encourage somebody to do it. I just suggest they think about it, and if they can do it, they do it. But I'm not the one that would have to suffer the consequences of a whistleblower coming out because I thought it was a good idea.
How come ever since the last congressional hearing where David Grush gave testimony, nobody hears about him anymore?
Well, for one thing, he got doxxed. He got attacked by Kirkpatrick and other problems. So, well, he'd already been harassed before he came forward. So he was a legitimate whistleblower, I believe, and so forth. And so he stepped back, I think, appropriately to get away from that. He did what he had to do. I don't think he came forward to be the leader of the disclosure movement. He made his statements, and occasionally you'll hear from him, but overall, he's trying to get back to a somewhat normal life. He has a family. Hopefully the death threats have stopped, and that's the reason. But there are plenty of other witnesses coming forth faster than you can keep up with them. So we have no lack of witnesses. What we just need is more hearings to get them under oath.
How are these witnesses vetted?
Typically, well, that takes Grush's situation. He's working. He's already got a classification status. He's working on the task force. So let's say you're coming out of the DIA. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it right, you will go to the appropriate committee. You will go to a committee in Congress that has staff that have the clearances to listen to what you have to say. You sit down privately and provide information. They will then decide what to do with it, such as taking it to the attention of certain members of that committee that have the appropriate classification, who will then decide whether they want to go further, whether they want to do investigation, whether they want to have a hearing. And if they have a hearing, you would then be called in to testify. But before then, you would talk to them again and go over the testimony. So they have a heads up of what's going to happen. Again, all with people that have clearance. and then you would testify under oath, or your testimony would be included in other investigations. That is the way Grush wanted it to go, but ultimately he was harassed enough that he had to, and threatened enough that he had to go to the Inspector General, and we got clearance there. But then he still was not able to, I guess, engage the issue appropriately, and so he went public to some journalists, Ross Coulthart, Blumenthal, Lester Kane, and the whole thing blew out on June the 5th of 2023, making him a very famous person. Since then, you have witnesses coming forward without so much risk and so much foo-fa, but they are coming forward. Now, the potential for someone to slip in who's not really legit is always there. There's a temptation the government might want to slip in somebody deliberately to muddy the waters. But overall, the witnesses that come forward have been legit, and they've provided tremendous information. And there have been at least now 6 who have testified under oath before committees of Congress, at least, well, the 2 major, but there have been several others, but they weren't witnesses. They were insiders that were brought in to be briefed. But 6 people have testified under oath about this issue, and their testimony, if viewed objectively, does what it's supposed to do. It confirms that there's a non-human tech presence here.
You know, there are a lot of people who say that there was no smoking gun at the last congressional hearing, and it was a waste of time.
Well, people are impatient. I get it. They're frustrated. It's been 70-some years.
Yeah.
That the idea of the smoking gun is an illusion. There really is no such thing. The object of all of this, the hearings, whether the people involved know it, though I think most of them do, but some don't. The object of all of this is not to tell the people what's going on. They already know what's going on, and informing the people really has to be the act of the president. There have been people like astronauts and others that have said there's ETs here, so what? Until the president confirms it as a formal action, and thus opening all kinds of doors to address it, including getting the final acts passed and other hearings underway, an actual real process of information coming out, previously classified, now made public. The president has to do it. All this is preliminary to that. It's all about setting that up. And so, no, they're not going to drag a body of an ET out in a plastic case and show it in a hearing. But they're trying to get the platform set up so the president can confirm, and post-disclosure, we may very well see, in not too long a time, photos, if not the actual containers that some of the ETs are in, the ones that, kind of like the ones that Jackie Gleason was given the privilege to see by Richard Nixon. That's a true story, as well as Kraft and other things. But we're not going to get that as part of this process, because that's not what this is about. This is about setting up the president to confirm it. And then under a very powerful UFO Disclosure Act, which will probably be finalized and filled out, and under substantial public scrutiny, the information and artifacts and everything else will start a process that will bring them all public and archived in a reasonable amount of time, probably less time than the government would like. And we won't be the only country doing this. Other heads of state will come forward, and those countries will be bringing out information, again, confirming the ET presence. All of this is ahead of us. On the other side of disclosure, which right now may be just a matter of whether or not it pleases the President of the United States to do so.
What would it do to the United States ego if Russia was to come out and present the proof that ETs are here and that the United States government had been perpetrating a fraud, a hoax on the American people for 78 years?
There's not enough eggs in the country to plaster on the faces of all the people in government in the event that happens. We will be second. We will be embarrassed. Confidence in government will drop even lower. Whoever does this will be given the title of the great truth teller, paradigm shifter. They'll be building statues of this head of state in various countries because it's a nonpartisan global matter, right? And not ours, though. Ours won't be getting any statues. So it will be a public relations fiasco, a national security loss, in a sense, a loss of prestige, and it will elevate the country and the head of state that does it. That's what's at stake. And I have been saying this for 30 years on over 1,500 interviews. I almost always get to it. Unless the leaders such as Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, name a few others, are actually working for the CIA and getting a W-2 every year, they could do it at any time. And so the ones that are dragging their feet over there at the DOD and coming up with ridiculous new statements like this recent article in the Wall Street Journal, they are putting our country at risk of being second in one of the greatest events in history. And it's I just don't know why they haven't figured that out and don't take action.
Stand by, Stephen. We've got to take our final break. And X-Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Stephen Bassett, well known to everyone within the UFO community. His website is paradigmresearchgroup.org. And if you go there, be prepared to spend a lot of time there. It's got newspaper clippings. It's got everything you want to do if you want to learn about what the truth is behind the UFO cover-up and why disclosure hasn't happened. Go to his website, www.paradigmresearch.org. And we'll be back on the other side as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and of course, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Some days I can't feel much at all. My body's a maze that I try to read. In the heart of the night, where the shadows play, on the X-Zone we gather, come what may, with Rob McConnell guiding us through the dark, searching for truth hidden, igniting the spark. Whispers of spirits, both gentle and bold, tales of the ancients in the stories retold. From haunted old houses to the echoing halls, we seek the unknown where the mystery calls. On the X-Zone Radio.
And welcome back, everyone. Stephen Bassett is our guest. And of course, his website is paradigmresearchgroup.org. Stephen, all right, let me ask you the question on the other side of the sword that I did on the other side by saying what would happen if, if Russia was to release the information. Having this knowledge, why doesn't the President of the United States just come out and say it? What's he waiting for? It makes no sense, because if somebody else does it, he's screwed. Again,
that's my point. Every president from Truman on could have, and as you move forward in time, given the circumstances, Carter gave it a bit of a run, but there was no chance in '77. There was an effort to get Clinton administration involved, and he did it. He did make an effort. He did engage Lawrence Rockefeller and others in what we call the Rockefeller Initiative, but it was the platform wasn't built. And the DOD was not a fan of the Clinton administration. And so it really didn't have a chance. But it was the logical thing to do after the Cold War ended. Once the Cold War ended, a great deal of the national security basis for maintaining this embargo just disappeared. And if they had gotten the embargo done, if they had brought disclosure about at that point, I think it would have changed the whole course of the rest of the 20th century. Instead, we ended up going right back into a new Cold War II, a new arms race, not of numbers, but of advanced weaponry and plenty of wars. So one of the great mistakes of history. So, but every president could do it, but there were some serious reasons. This they couldn't, and this time is different. This president is just simply cut from a different cloth. He is the one president, frankly, could just do it. and his appointees at state and CIA and DOD and Homeland Security and National Intelligence, all that, they're basically loyalists to him.
Right.
They're really not likely to put up much of a fight. So he's really got, it's right there for him, and that's why I brought it up earlier. And let history decide whether it was a good decision or not. So there's a whole lot of reasons to do it. There are limited and eroding reasons not to do it. And so there you have it. The current president of the United States could be the disclosure president. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen a couple of weeks and a couple of months. But there's no real barrier, as we've seen in the past, other than, of course, the DOD is still trying to resist, which is why they put out, they used the Wall Street Journal to put out a grotesque new article that I can talk about in a second.
Sure.
But that's the best answer I can give you. But before I go on, I want to mention that there are a lot of people in Canada, a lot of Canadians who have been part of this process, the disclosure process and research as well, over the years. Grant Cameron, my good friend, certainly has been involved in it. And then, of course, a shout out to the leading disclosure activist, disclosure advocate in Canada, and that's, of course, Victor Viggiani, who is as relentless and persistent as I am. So I do hope that Canada will share in what's coming as much as possible. So that's basically my answer to that. But let's get into the Wall Street Journal. What's happened?
Yeah, let's do that.
Is that because of a huge amount of unrest internationally that's sucking up the press, a lot of chaos domestically, the whole process is slowed down to some degree. It's not reversed, slowed down. And those opposing disclosure decided to make a move. They've made others in the past, taking advantage of the situation. And so I believe how this went down, though it hasn't been, vetted yet, and it's hard to vet, but the Wall Street Journal, which has done something like 19 stories, almost 20 stories in the last 3 years, was going to do another story about developments. And they assigned that story to two national security reporters, good reporters, Joel Sheckman and Aruna Viswanathan. And so they went about to put these stories together, to do an assessment of what's going on. And naturally, they went and talked to about 24, and it's mentioned in the article, 24 insiders, DOD, scientists. They were provided lots of documents from these same people. And they spent 3 months on this. In fact, Sheckman even talked to me 3 months ago. I helped him get in contact with Bob Salas, which is, I think, one of the only people on the other side of this issue, outside of government, that they've talked to. And I did talk to him, but I gave him information, but he was more interested in Salas. That's fine. When the story came out, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And it's a testimony to, the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. What they did was, the story has 2 parts. In the first part, these insiders presented to these 2 reporters essentially the assessment that, in fact, virtually all the UFO stuff that's been reported over the years was, in fact, government disinformation. We have been doing disinformation. We have been playing with all of this information in order to protect certain testing and so forth that we're doing. It was for national security. It's the first time they formally admitted to disinformation, which is interesting. They felt they had to take that risk, thinking it'll pay off. It won't. And so essentially, the other papers are now writing these articles. I guess it was us all along. It was the government doing it all along, and hoping they can grandfather the entire phenomena and everything reported in the thousands upon hundreds of thousands of reports into government disinformation, which is completely bogus, absolutely wrong, total lie. And then, I hope it wasn't deliberate, the second half of the story was devoted to one thing: Robert Salas and the nuclear shutdown witness testimony. And the reason they did that is because they are well aware that the chances of a number of former SAC base officers testifying under oath to the incidents where they were present and our missiles were all shut down, where a giant object, craft-type glowing object is hanging directly over the base, over the flight rather, the launch control center rather, being seen by all the security people, is getting very close to being in a hearing. Nancy Mace met with Bob Salas. I was present for that meeting. It was filmed by Tyler Roberts back in November of last year. I have delivered affidavits for all their witness testimony to 36 offices, including the Senate Intel Committee and the House Oversight Subcommittee, electronic copies and so forth. It's definitely in play. And they see this coming. And these are the witnesses they dread testimony. And so they gave these two reporters a story that, in fact, they have always known what shut those witnesses down. They've never acknowledged this. It was us. It was an EMP experiment to see if the missiles were vulnerable to an EMP blast from another weapon by an enemy. And they went to elaborate efforts to convince them of this. It is a complete lie. Bob Salas has already responded. Others, Danny Sheehan has responded. Merrick von Rettingkamp has responded. Kevin Wright. And the internet in general is shredding this thing. It is an absolute joke. And I have to wonder and hope one day to be able to ask some inside people about this. Were you aware that when this article was going to be played out, that you would have half the article saying everything you saw was not true because we created all this disinformation, and then in the second half of the article, you provide an alternative explanation for something that's been researched for decades to death with books and everything else, with witnesses coming forward, and ask the reader to believe you? That you put those two together? Did you see the irony there at all? Was that deliberate? Mm-hmm. Did you miss it? Did it not occur to you that's pretty outrageous? We've been lying to you for 70 years, but on this one thing, you got to believe it. What can I say? That is an example of pushback. There have been others. As it is the case, in this case, Kirkpatrick, who was pushed back on this issue, was involved. We think Kozlowski was involved. Phillips was involved. And many others, not just them. One more shot to try to buy a little time to keep the inevitable from happening. And it's so transparent now. In the age of the internet, you don't do this. It worked in 69, it worked in 52, but in the age of the internet, hundreds of millions of people talking about the issue worldwide, in touch with each other, able to troll you in a moment's notice? No, it was absolutely ridiculous, which is why Anna Paulina Luna is fed up. And so she is called for the defunding of ARROW. Kevin Wright is called for the defunding of ARROW. He writes for the Roswell Daily Record. And I think ARROW has to be defunded. It was put in place to just be a Potemkin village to hold the fort. This whole thing, though, has dragged on too long. As a result, Against ARROW was kind of sucked in a way to the whole process, and now as a debunking entity. And so it has to be defunded, eliminated, and have to start over as quickly as possible with a new organization. And that's not just me saying it. That's Anna Paulina Luna saying it, and I think you're going to have a few more members of Congress saying it. And so again, the desperation and the desperate attempts by the Pentagon, like the mogul balloon and the crash test dummies, and the efforts to try to dispel the UFO flap of last year by calling it drones, mm-hmm. but not being able to say whose drones they are, or explain the phenomenon in general. They were our drones, by the way, but the rest of that stuff, all those plasma orbs, the Foo Fighter stuff, that was ET's, one of the biggest UFO flap of all time. These are embarrassing. They're demeaning. They degrade our national security structures. We lose trust in government. These are the people that defend us and risk their lives. They're not supposed to be props in a giant disinformation campaign that's still going on, even after they admitted it. And so that's just what happened recently. And there have been other things that have happened both in our country and outside our country that are extremely concerning. And I'm just hanging in there. Activism is tough. It is at the whims of history. Anything can disrupt it. The goal may be pure, but history is bigger than that particular movement. And so, as in the case of other movements, we are now kind of back in a holding pattern, but not going backwards. Luna has announced to Matt Laszlo that she plans on hearings in July. She's going to get a skiff. So she doesn't care who's invading who's bombing who. She is prepared to go forward on this. She is the head of the task force for declassifying federal secrets. She's a pistol, I'll tell you. I mean, this is a determined, intense woman. She's fairly young, but she'll stand up to anybody on the Hill. Got to give her credit.
Steve,
quite clear.
Steve, I hate to do this.
It is the most bipartisan issue in our history.
Steve, I hate to do this. Our time's just
Yes,
run out. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Please come back again, and keep it up, Steve. I feel that one day you're going to be right up there with those people on the podium, showing off what ET really is. Take care of yourself now, Steve.
I'll settle for a nice party, man. You got to come.
All right, take care, Steve. All right, Exo Nation, my guest this hour has been Stephen Bassett, his website, paradigmresearchgroup.org. I'll be back on the other side of the short break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell from the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and Mutual Broadcast Network, and streaming on classic1220.ca. I'll be back, don't go away.